The nation's leaders wrangled over bailouts Monday while governors chipped away at lockdowns and hundreds of people gathered to protest the stay-at-home restrictions.
In Washington, a deal appeared close to provide an additional $300 billion for small businesses crushed by the lockdowns. The deal would also provide more funding for hospitals and for testing. In New York, the state most impacted by the virus, public health officials kicked off the most extensive antibody testing campaign in the nation. Governor Andrew Cuomo will visit Tuesday with President Donald Trump at the White House.
Stocks struggled and oil prices took another nosedive under the weight of the sagging economy. In Pennsylvania's capital city of Harrisburg, protesters opposed to Governor Tom Wolf's restrictive stay-at-home order gathered at the Capitol building.
Similar protests have been springing up across the nation as jobless numbers rise and patience thins.
The U.S. coronavirus death toll rose to surpass 41,000. There are more than 778,000 confirmed cases, according to Johns Hopkins University data. The number of worldwide cases was nearing 2.5 million. There are over 169,000 deaths.
Our live blog is being updated throughout the day. Refresh for the latest news, and get updates in your inbox with the daily briefing. More headlines.
It's 4/20. Legal weed stores are essential. Will marijuana go mainstream?
Bold move. Photos show counter-protesters dressed in scrubs blocking lockdown demonstration in Colorado.
When will a second wave of the coronavirus hit? What will it look like?
Reopening America. What states are relaxing social distancing restrictions?
Will coronavirus quarantine mess up my kid for life? Probably not. But poor kids are at risk.
Meat shortage? Coronavirus has led Smithfield, other plants to close and farmers to dump milk.
It's carnage. Crematoriums are running around the clock.
Need a mask? 9 retailers selling fabric face masks that are worth buying.
Staying apart, together. Sign up for our newsletter on coping with a world changed by coronavirus. Email.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, a frequent sparring partner of President Trump during the coronavirus crisis, will visit the White House Tuesday, Trump said during his daily pandemic press briefing Monday.
New York has been the hardest hit by COVID-19 with more than 250,000 cases and 18,000 deaths, according to the Johns Hopkins database tracking the virus, but numbers have been improving.
They're really getting it together in New York. A lot of good things are happening in New York, Trump said. And I think the governor is coming to see us tomorrow. He's coming to the Oval Office tomorrow afternoon. Andrew is going to be coming in with some of his people, so we're looking forward to that.
The meeting comes on the heels of a testy exchange Friday between the two politicians. After Cuomo chastised the president for asking governors to take on coronavirus challenges without federal resources, Trump tweeted that the governor should spend more time doing and less time complaining. Cuomo responded that all the president seemed to be doing was walking in front of the parade.
On Monday, Governor Henry McMaster of South Carolina and Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia moved forward with separate measures that ease restrictions on the temporary closures of certain businesses in their states.
McMaster announced a plan called Accelerate South Carolina that will allow clothing, department, furniture, jewelry and sporting goods stores, as well as florists and flea markets to reopen at reduced capacity. The closure on beaches will be lifted, though it will be up to local officials to decide on the reopening of specific beaches.
The order will go into effect Tuesday and still encourages social distancing directives to be followed. Barbershops, beauty salons, bingo halls, gyms and nightclubs must remain closed for now.
Kemp said he was allowing certain businesses to reopen on Friday, including gyms, fitness centers, bowling alleys, barbers, cosmetologists and massage therapists. They must also adhere to social distancing measures.
Bars, nightclubs and entertainment operations will remain closed, but restaurants and theaters will be able to reopen April 27.
New York City's Pride Parade, which would have marked its 50th anniversary, and the Puerto Rican Day Parade were among all major events canceled Monday in June by Mayor Bill de Blasio. City hospitalizations and deaths appear to be in a modest decline, but de Blasio has said the city can't ease its tight stay-at-home restrictions until extensive daily testing can be worked out.
That march is such an important part of life in this city, but this year in particular was going to be something that was a historical moment, de Blasio said of the Pride Parade. They will be back, and we will find the right way to do it.
Hundreds of protesters, many ignoring social distancing rules, rallied at the Pennsylvania Capitol in Harrisburg on Monday in opposition of the state's shutdown of schools and businesses. Gov. Tom Wolf, a Democrat, released a phase-in plan last week aimed at reopening the state but provided few details and no timeline. Limitations on mass gatherings will remain in place for the duration of the reopening process, and a strong testing regime must be in place in areas that are permitted to reopen, according to the plan.
In Denver a day earlier, healthcare workers blocked a parade of protesters who gathered outside of Colorado's capital in opposition of the state's stay-at-home orders. Viral photos show counter-protesters in teal scrubs and matching masks with crossed arms standing in front of motorists lined up for several blocks leading to the Capitol building.
Iconic baseball bat brand Louisville Slugger is hoping the coronavirus doesn't strike it out. With the start of Major League Baseball on indefinite hold and no revenue coming in, fifth-generation company Hillerick & Bradsby has been forced to furlough 171 employees, which is most of its workforce. They will receive benefits and health insurance, but no pay. Those still employed got a 25% pay cut.
We're not doing any advertising. We've cut all our expenses we can. We're just hoping we get back to normal before we run out of cash, CEO John Hillerick IV told the Louisville Courier-Journal. H&B was sold to sporting goods manufacturer Wilson in 2015 for $70 million. It typically makes around 50,000 bats a year, the longtime weapons of choice for everyone from Babe Ruth to Derek Jeter.
H&B tried to access federal aid through its bank, but later found out that Wells Fargo was only applying on behalf of much smaller companies. By the time H&B reapplied for Small Business Administration loans, funds had run out. Adding to the bat maker's concerns is the fragile nature of its raw material. If not turned into bats soon, the logs currently sitting in the company's warehouses could soon become worthless due to rot.
Alfred Miller, Louisville Courier-Journal.
The head of the World Health Organization warned that the worst is yet ahead of us in the coronavirus outbreak, a dire prediction coming as many countries and U.S. states are beginning to ease restrictive measures. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus didn't detail his warning, but global health officials have previously warned that the coronavirus could prove brutal as it sweeps through Africa, where health systems are far less developed.
President Donald Trump has repeatedly accused WHO of failing to provide accurate, up-to-date information on the coronavirus outbreak and has frozen U.S. funding to the agency.
U.S. stocks were traded lower and oil prices plummeted Monday despite indications the nation's slumbering economy could soon begin to awaken. The Dow Industrials and broader Standard & Poor's averages were down more than 2% and 1%, respectively, although tech stocks were higher. The economic upheaval caused by coronavirus layoffs and stay-at-home orders has softened oil demand to where there is little space left in U.S. storage facilities for what is being pumped from the ground.
Several states, however, have announced plans to begin easing lockdown restrictions. National companies were also beginning to stir. Boeing was set to begin ramping up production in Washington state, where approximately 27,000 people could return to work this week, the planemaker said.
New research suggests that many people have had the coronavirus without symptoms, fueling hope that it will turn out to be much less lethal than feared. But without widespread antibody testing, it would also make it difficult to know who around you may be contagious, complicating decisions about returning to work, school, and normal life.
In the last week, reports of silent infections have come from a homeless shelter in Boston, a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, pregnant women at a New York hospital, several European countries and California. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says 25% of infected people might not have symptoms. Pentagon officials say it may be as high as 60% to 70% among military personnel.
New York State kicked off a large-scale antibody testing program to determine what percentage of the population has contracted the coronavirus in advance of reviving the state's economy. A total of 3,000 people will be randomly selected for testing this week to determine if their bodies have built up an immunity.
Governor Andrew Cuomo said data metrics of coronavirus cases, deaths, hospitalizations and intubations would suggest we're seeing a descent of the outbreak in the state. There were 478 coronavirus deaths Sunday, which was down from 507 the day before. The decline has been fairly steady for several days. Cuomo did say that emergency rooms are still at or over capacity, but it's better than it was, and that new hospitalizations of patients with COVID-19 were basically flat.
Chad Arnold and Lorenzo Reyes.
Many marijuana stores shuttered by lockdowns are embracing the change, allowing customers to order online and pick up curbside. That's a major shift from when each buyer had to be personally verified by a licensed store worker. In California, stores have largely switched to an all-delivery model. Regulators in many states have declared cannabis shops essential business on par with groceries, gas and liquor. Some cannabis advocates are optimistic the outbreak is providing an opportunity to move further into the mainstream.
In a sea of chaos, this was one of the biggest moments in our industry's history, investor Morgan Paggia said.
Trevor Hughes.
President Donald Trump said he's okay with Nevada's closure of non-essential businesses, which has shuttered Las Vegas casinos, days after the city's mayor called the shutdown total insanity. Trump gave qualified support Sunday to Nevada's Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak's closure amid the coronavirus pandemic. Nevada has 3,728 confirmed cases of coronavirus and 155 deaths. Las Vegas Mayor Carolyn Goodman, who identifies as an independent, called on Sisolak to allow businesses to reopen.
They closed a big hotel down in Nevada that I have in Las Vegas. It's a very severe step he took. I'm okay with it, Trump said. But you could call that one either way.
Brian Alexander.
The White House and congressional leaders were nearing a deal to replenish a program geared to keeping small businesses from shuttering and their employees from going on unemployment. The agreement would provide another $300 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program, which has burned through its initial $349 billion for loans to small businesses. The deal would also provide $75 billion to help overwhelmed hospitals and $25 billion to increase the capacity to test for the virus. But a number of disagreements remain over details, including how those funds will be divided and spent.
Crystal Hayes and William Cummings.
Several horror stories have emerged in recent weeks from cruise ships struggling to find welcoming ports while battling sometimes deadly waves of coronavirus. Not so the Costa Deliciosa, whose passengers began disembarking in Barcelona on Monday after traveling the globe for 15 weeks while the new coronavirus spread on land.
Owner Costa Crociere, an Italian company, says the ship has no cases of the COVID-19 virus on board. The boat sailed the last 5 weeks with virtually no human contact with the outside world. Hundreds of the boat's 1,831 passengers, including 168 Spaniards, were expected to get off the boat in Spain, and the rest were expected to do so in the next and last stop, in Genoa, Italy.
Queen Elizabeth II's husband issued a rare public statement, praising those tackling the new coronavirus pandemic and keeping essential services running. Prince Philip, who turns 99 in June, applauded the vital and urgent work of medical and science professionals as well as people working in food production, garbage collection and postal and delivery services.
The shout-out comes as hospital organizations are slamming Britain's government for its failure to give medical staff appropriate clothing and equipment to deal with the COVID-19 outbreak. With so many promises dashed, Chris Hopson of the NHS providers told the BBC there is relatively low confidence that a shipment of 400,000 surgical gowns overdue from Turkey will arrive Monday. Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden says he's hopeful that later today that flight will take off and we will get those gowns.
Shake Shack is sending back the $10 million it received from the government's stimulus loans program aimed at saving small businesses ravaged by the coronavirus pandemic. Shake Shack CEO Randy Garutti and founder Danny Meyer said the company sought the loan because it was supposed to be open to all businesses with 500 or fewer employees. The criteria applies to the chain's individual franchise locations. The company secured separate funding last week through a public stock transaction.
The PPP came with no user manual and it was extremely confusing, the executives said in a joint statement.
Dalvin Brown.
Contributing, The Associated Press.